Dog saved by girl. Within 2 hours her lives changed forever. Emma was walking home from school, her backpack weighing heavily on her shoulders. As she turned onto a quiet street, she heard a faint whimpering coming from an alleyway. Her curiosity piqued, she began to follow the sound. As she got closer she could see a small dog huddled in the corner, shaking and looking up at her with pleading eyes. Hey there, Viral Videos here. Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button and click the notification bell. We post the most beautiful, amazing and scary videos every single day. Let's proceed with the video. The sight of the dog tugged at her heartstrings. It was clear that the dog had been abandoned and was in distress. Emma knew that she had to help the pup, but she had no idea how to do it. She didn't even have any food or water with her. She knew that she had to act fast before it was too late. Emma slowly approached the dog, and as she got closer she could see the extent of the dog's injuries. Its fur was matted and dirty and its paws were bloody and raw. It was clear that the dog had been struggling to survive for a while now. Emma carefully approached the dog and extended her hand towards it, hoping that it would not attack her. The dog hesitated for a moment, then slowly moved towards her, wagging its tail tentatively. Emma breathed a sigh of relief and gently picked the dog up in her arms. As she carried the dog towards her house, she could feel its heartbeat racing. The dog was scared and in pain, and Emma knew that she needed to get it help as soon as possible. She walked as quickly as she could, her heart racing with anxiety. When Emma finally arrived home, she immediately set the dog down on a blanket in her bedroom and called her parents. They were both at work and couldn't come home right away, so Emma was left to care for the dog on her own. She quickly searched for some first aid supplies and began to tend to the dog's wounds. It was clear that the dog was severely malnourished, so Emma knew that she needed to find some food for it. She rummaged through her pantry and found some cans of dog food, which she heated up and gave to the dog. As the dog ate, Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of connection with it. She knew that the dog needed her help, and she was determined to give it everything that it needed to survive. As the night wore on, Emma stayed up with the dog, cleaning its wounds and making sure that it was comfortable. She had never felt so responsible for another creature's well-being, but she knew that she had to be strong for the dog's sake. By the time Emma's parents arrived home, the dog was sleeping soundly on its blanket, its breathing steady and calm. Emma's parents were surprised to see the dog in their daughter's bedroom, but when Emma explained the situation to them, they were supportive and impressed by her bravery. The dog was in good hands now, and Emma knew that they had a long road ahead of them, but she was determined to give the dog a second chance at life, and she knew that their lives were about to change forever. The next morning, Emma woke up early to check on the dog. It was still sleeping soundly, but Emma could see that its breathing was a little labored and it was still shivering. She knew that she had to take it to the vet as soon as possible. Emma quickly got dressed and gathered the dog into a makeshift carrier made from a cardboard box and a blanket. She could feel the dog's heartbeat racing as she carried it outside into the fresh air. She felt a pang of guilt for not being able to get it to the vet sooner, but she knew that she was doing everything that she could. Emma set off down the street, the box carrier bumping against her leg. As she walked, she could feel the eyes of her neighbors on her, watching as she carried the dog to the vet. Emma felt a little self-conscious, but she knew that she had to put the dog's needs before her own. As she walked, Emma dialed the number for the vet, hoping that they could see the dog right away. The receptionist on the other end of the line was sympathetic, but she warned Emma that the vet was booked solid for the next few hours. Emma's heart sank. She knew that the dog needed medical attention immediately, and she couldn't bear the thought of waiting any longer. She begged the receptionist to fit her in somehow, and to her relief, the receptionist relented. When Emma arrived at the vet's office, she could see that it was packed with other pets and their owners. She felt a little overwhelmed, but she knew that she had to stay focused. She approached the receptionist and explained the situation, hoping that they could see the dog right away. After some quick paperwork, Emma was whisked into an examination room with the vet. The vet examined the dog carefully, taking note of its injuries and its overall condition. Emma could see the worry on the vet's face, and she knew that the situation was serious. The vet gave Emma some medication and care instructions, but she warned her that the dog was still in critical condition. Emma felt a wave of panic wash over her, but she knew that she had to stay strong. As Emma walked back to her house with the dog, she felt a sense of urgency building within her. She knew that she had to do everything that she could to save this dog's life. She was determined to get it the care that it needed, no matter what it took. The next few hours were a blur of activity as Emma tended to the dog's needs. She administered the medication, cleaned its wounds, and made sure that it was comfortable. She knew that the next few days would be critical, but she was willing to do whatever it took to get the dog back to full health. As the sun set outside, Emma sat by the dog's side, watching as it slept soundly. She knew that their lives had changed forever, and she was grateful for the chance to make a difference in this dog's life. She knew that the road ahead would be tough, but she was ready to face it head-on with the dog by her side. Over the next few days, Emma continued to care for the dog, making sure that it received the best possible care. She took it back to the vet for follow-up appointments, and she spent countless hours nursing it back to health. As the days turned into weeks, Emma could see that the dog was starting to recover. Its breathing became more regular, and it started to gain weight. It even started to wag its tail when Emma came into the room, a sign that it was starting to trust her. One day, as Emma was feeding the dog, she noticed that it had started to perk up. It was more alert than usual, and it even started to sniff around the room. Emma felt a surge of hope in her chest. She knew that the dog was starting to feel better and that it was starting to recover. As Emma sat with the dog, she couldn't help but think about how much their lives had changed since that fateful night. She had never imagined that taking in a stray dog would lead to such a dramatic change in her life. But she also knew that this was a second chance for both her and the dog. It was a chance for her to make a difference in the world, to help an animal in need, and it was a chance for the dog to start a new life free from the dangers of the streets. As the weeks turned into months, Emma and the dog grew closer. They went for walks together, played in the park, and snuggled up together on the couch. Emma knew that the dog was no longer just a pet, but a true companion. One day, as Emma was sitting on the couch with the dog, she realized that she had never asked its name. She looked into its eyes and asked, "What's your name, little buddy?" The dog looked back at her, its tail wagging happily. Emma knew in that moment that the dog was meant to be a part of her life forever. She knew that their lives had changed forever and that they would never be the same. As Emma looked back on those first few days with the dog, she realized that she had been given a second chance at life. She had been given the chance to make a difference, to help an animal in need, and to find a true companion. And as she looked at the dog, she knew that it had been given a second chance too. It had been given the chance to start a new life, to be loved and cared for, and to be a part of a family. As Emma sat with the dog, she knew that their lives had changed forever, but she also knew that they had been given a second chance and that they would never take it for granted. As the months passed, Emma and the dog developed an unbreakable bond. They went everywhere together, and Emma couldn't imagine her life without the dog by her side. One day, Emma decided to take the dog on a hike in the mountains. As they walked along the trail, Emma noticed that the dog was walking with a bit of a limp. She stopped and checked its paw and noticed that it had a small cut. Emma cleaned the wound and put a bandage on the dog's paw. As she did, the dog looked up at her with grateful eyes. Emma realized in that moment that she had formed a bond with the dog that would never break. They continued on the trail, and as they walked, Emma thought back on the night she had found the dog. She couldn't help but feel grateful for the chance encounter and for the opportunity to save the dog's life. As they reached the summit of the mountain, Emma sat down to take in the breathtaking view. The dog sat next to her, its head resting on her lap. Emma looked down at the dog and knew that she had found her true companion. As the sun began to set, Emma and the dog started to make their way back down the mountain. Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of contentment wash over her. She knew that no matter what happened in her life, she would always have the dog by her side. When they arrived back home, Emma realized that the dog had become a fixture in her life. It had brought so much joy and love into her world, and she couldn't imagine living without it. As Emma tucked the dog into bed that night, she realized that their lives had changed forever, but she also knew that it was for the better. The dog had given her a purpose and a sense of responsibility that she had never experienced before. Over the years, Emma and the dog continued to share adventures together. They went on road trips, explored new cities, and snuggled up together on lazy afternoons. As the dog grew older, Emma knew that she would have to say goodbye someday, but she also knew that their bond would never break and that the memories they shared would always be with her. One day many years later, as Emma sat with the dog on its final day, she knew that it was time to say goodbye. As she held the dog in her arms, she couldn't help but feel grateful for the time they had shared together. As she said her final goodbyes, Emma realized that the dog had given her a gift that she would always cherish. It had given her the gift of love, of companionship, and of a bond that would never break. As Emma walked away from the vet's office that day, she knew that their lives had changed forever, but she also knew that their bond would never break and that the dog would always hold a special place in her heart. And as she looked up at the sky, Emma knew that the dog was running free in a place where it would never feel pain or suffering again. She knew that the dog had found peace and that their bond would continue to live on in her memories. What did you think of this story? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, like the video and subscribe. See you next time.